Hello guys, and welcome back to the second part of this tutorial for restaurant tips calculation. In the previous lesson, you can go back and watch it if you haven't already done that. We created the design for this code or for this app in which we have one main activity, the main activity. We design it using the UTB logo and a button to click on it, in which we have this action to open the second activity here using the intent I. Then we pass that to a start activity method. In the second activity, we created this design. We finished the design in which we show a text view for the restaurant tips here. And we have one edit text for the cost, in which I will enter the cost after all. We have another text view to ask how was the service. Then a radio group options, which we call amazing, good, okay, and bad. Each one has its own ID. Then we have a switch to ask the user either or not to round this step. And finally, we have button calculation to make the calculation. And here we have a text view to show the results. So I need to add the code for this file because right now it is empty. I need to create the Java code in this tutorial. So let's start by first know how to link these items I created in the design with the Java part, because we have the design in XML and we have the code in Java. I can use a function called findViewById, then specify the resource name like button calculate. I need to link this button calculate. So by using the findViewById, it will return a view of type button. So I can call it a button. The same name is equal to button. So by using this way, we create a link for this button. This one is dummy, you can just remove it. We retrieve the view by its ID. So this one is button calculate. I retrieve it and use it in this way. Right now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So at least I have 8 controllers. And instead of writing them in this way, one by one, and create its own type like button, edit, radio group, radio button, text view, and give each one its own name. There is another way which is very simple by using the view binding. To add view binding to your project, open the Gradle script. Make sure you use the Android menu. Open build Gradle. Inside the Android, at the bottom here, write build features, open and close, and say view binding is equal to true. So by using this way, we add this feature to our Android app. After you make a sync, wait for it. Now I already added the binding view. To use the binding view, it will automatically create another class for you with binding. So this activity name is tips calculation activity. So if I just type binding, you will find that we have this class, the second one, activity tips calculation binding. So I can create an object from this one, creating an object from this activity, which was created automatically for us. Then initialize that object. So right here, I will initialize that object by using this function. Write also binding, the same class name, activity tips calculations binding, this one, dot inflate, and inside this function write get layout inflator. So it is just a line that you need to write it. So the XML part will be linked to the Java part. Now I have this binding. I can use it, binding dot get root, to return the layout, the root layout, which we create inside the activity tips XML, which is the linear layout. So from this root, I can now access all the elements inside this view. Now I have this one, it will return a view. This function getRoot, it will return a view. So let's rename it as this way. If you have one error like this way, you need to import the class, because right now we don't have this view imported. So if I just highlight that error, it will ask me to enter Alt Enter. So hit Alt and Enter. You can see it automatically imported the Android view class. So now I can use this view instead of linking the set content view function to the XML part. I can make it link in this way. After that, I can start my program normally now. First of all, I need to make an action for this button calculate. We did an action in our previous class using this way by adding in the XML part, I added onClick function. So this is one way to write your code in a shortcut without the need for the binding. But in this case, since we have many controls, I will use the binding to access these elements. So I will call binding, which is the root dot button calculate. This is my button. I need to add an action listener for this button. So there is one function called set onClick listener, the first one. Inside this function, you need to create the listener, new onClick listener. The first option you got, hit enter. It will create this onClick function for you directly. Inside this function, you will do your calculations. First, I need to get the value from this input edit text. So the name of this input is binding dot, we call it edit cost. This is the name of our controller. Make sure to save the names. So this one is edit cost. So I will take the value from this one using the function get text. We have a function called get text which returns editable. I don't want it to be edit text, so I will convert it to a string using the toString function. So now we have the cost. I can store it as string cost. After that, I need to make some calculation using this value, but right now it is string. I need to convert it from string to double. I will use a function called double.parse double, which receives the string and returns for me a double part. So I will create in this way. This function converts the string to a double. So now I have the cost ready. After that, I need to make sure which one of these values is selected from the radio group. So in the radio group, I can access the radio group using this binding dot. We call this one RG options. This is the name of our radio group. Inside the XML part, we have RG button. Make sure to have the IDs in the same way. In the radio group, I can get the selected or the checked item using the first function, get checked radio button ID. This one, it returns an ID of the selected radio button. From that checked ID, I can now compare using the if statement if the checked ID is equal to the ID of the first radio button, which is in the screen, the name of this one, dot rbtn amazing dot get ID. As you can see, it returns ID, and this is ID of the checked one. So double equal to make the conversion. If this ID is equal to the button amazing ID, then what should I do? I will change the tips. So right now we have double tip 0D. Right now our tip is 0. So after that, the tip, if it is amazing, I will multiply the cost by 20%. So that we have the cost multiplied by double value 20. Else, I will repeat this one. I have another one. If the checked ID is equal to binding, see, every time we need to access any controller from the screen, we use the binding. So now binding dot, the second one is good, dot get ID. Again, we must write it this way. Then in this case, the tab will be multiplied by only 10. Not statement, if this one, else if. Tab. Next, we need to write else if the checked ID is equal to binding dot radio button OK dot get ID. In case of OK, it is only 5% discount, so the tab will be multiplied by 0, 5. I can create else here because it is dummy, because we already have the tab as 0. So if I didn't do this one here, I can keep it as double tab. Then here, if the case is else, the tab will be 0 t. Okay, so right now we calculate the tab using this code. After that, I need to ask whether or not I am rounding the tab from this checked switch. So for the switch, you need to check its status, whether it is checked or not. So pending, I need to access the switch. The name of the switch is switch round on the screen. We have one function called isChecked, which will check whether or not this switch is active or not. Right now it is false. Once I make it in this way, it is true. So if this one is true, I need to recalculate the cost itself. So in this case, I will call a function from the math class dot seal the tab. So the result will be stored inside the tab again. We make a ceiling for this tab and we store it again in the value or in the variable tab. Then finally, I need to display my message inside the text view. But before I do that, I will create a message as a string and I will call it tab is equal to, then concatenate it with the message tab. So now I have my message ready. I can now access the text view result, which we text, what is the name of the text? I forgot. You go to this one, we didn't give it a name, so I will rename it to text result. As you can see, everything must have its own name so that we can make access for it. So this one is txt result. I can now access it. Dot set text. I need to set the text inside this one, so I will do it in this way. We finish the code, so now I can, this one should be here, sorry. Make sure to keep it at the top, then after that, run. This is our running app. I can now open the app, write how much is the cost. This is a hint. Once I type something, it will be automatically disabled. Then I need to select how was the surface. If it is amazing, it is 20% tip. So from that, I will get 21 rounded. Then if it is good, it is 10%. Okay, it is 5%. Bad, it is 0 tip. Second one, if I didn't select the round, then for the first one, it will be like this way, this way, this way. Once I enable or check the switch, it will be rounded to the nearest integer. That's it for this class. Hopefully you learned something new in these two tutorials. If you like these tutorials, kindly like this video and subscribe to my channel. I will see you inshallah in the next tutorial.